How's it going, Jack Tackers, and welcome back to another video for you guys. Today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite TV show episodes of all time. Now there are some ground rules here. I'm not going to be including multiple episodes of the same TV show. Otherwise, this whole list would probably just end up being a top 10 Breaking Bad episodes video. Yeah, and if you want to see that, watch my ranking of all the Breaking Bad episodes because I did a video about that a little while ago. But I just feel like that's the fairest way to do this video because if I did include multiple episodes of the same TV show, then I don't know, it wouldn't feel right for some reason. I feel like this gives more episodes a chance to make it on the list and for me to talk about more TV shows, which is just more fun for me. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop on in to the video. At number 10, one of my favorite episodes of TV has to be Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards. Now, this is a lot of people's go-to Game of Thrones episode. A lot of people claim this is one of the best episodes. And, well, yeah, I agree. It's personally just my favorite. Is it the best? I don't know. Best and favorites, you can kind of go back and forth with subjectivity and all that. But Battle of the Bastards is just amazing. It's an hour-long battle episode, basically, and it was incredible just because the battle is so well executed and well shot, intense, amazing. The budget for this episode was probably very high, and that one scene where John is getting trampled by all the bodies and he has to get out of there, and he finally gets out and he breathes and he's like, it's just amazing. You know, it was so intense. And also Ramsay finally dies in this episode, and it was very, very satisfying. And of course, the Starks reclaim Winterfell. I love this episode. It's fantastic. It was a great victory for the good guys, even though a lot of people still died. But it was fantastic. I mean, I just loved it. Very exciting stuff. Anyways, at number 9, I have Arrow, Season 5, Episode 23, which was titled Lian Yu. Now, I went back and forth on whether or not I should include this episode on the list, but just because Arrow, in its later years, kind of started to go downhill. But this episode on its own is just amazing. And I actually rewatched it before I made this video, so I was, prepared to talk about it. And yeah, it definitely deserves to be on this list. And it was actually number 10, but now it's number 9 because I realized that I really, really do love this episode. It was special for the series because it really almost felt like a series finale for Arrow. Matter of fact, I think it should have been the series finale for Arrow. I'm not saying it's like the last good episode of the show because there's some good stuff in Arrow Season 7 but with the prison storyline, but I really just loved this episode because it kind of wrapped up the flashbacks that we had been watching all these years. And it got to the moment where we see Oliver get on that boat and leave Lian Yu, and then we have the stuff happening in the present with Adrian Chase, and that moment where the island blows up is one of the best cliffhangers I've ever seen, to be honest. And it was a cliffhanger done right. Granted, they don't really deliver on that cliffhanger in the Season 6 premiere. William's mom is the only casualty, and I think someone else probably should have died, like Felicity or I don't know, someone else. But that doesn't happen. Either way, though, the episode on its own is amazing. It has some great action sequences, Deathstrokes in here, kicking ass. It's amazing. Love the episode. Anyways, at number 8, I have The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 8, Chapter 16, The Rescue. Now, is it because, spoiler alert, of course, this is a big spoiler alert, so, I mean, I've been spoiling all the episodes so far, but I don't know. I feel like this is an extra spoiler alert because Luke Skywalker, of course, shows up at the end, and it was incredible to see Luke. Now, there's a lot of people clowning on me going into this episode. I remember back in the day when this episode was coming out, people were like, oh, Luke's not going to be in the episode. Sure enough, he was. It was amazing. And also the final goodbye between Grogu and Mando was just very, very sad. And it is my favorite episode of the show. That may or may not be a hot take. I know some people thought the Luke CGI kind of looked a little weird on the face, but I think it looked all right. We also got to see R2. That was pretty great. And that final moment where Mando takes his helmet off and says goodbye to Grogu is just so touching. And it was great, really good. I loved this episode, man. It's fantastic Star Wars content. Anyways, at number 7, I have Lost, Season 3, Episode 23, Through the Looking Glass, Part 2. This was a very sad season finale. But and yes, a large part of it is just because I love Charlie's character, and of course he ends up dying in this episode, and it was devastating. It's one of the saddest deaths in Lost. I mean, there are a lot of deaths, but this is one of the sadder ones for me. Wasn't expecting this to happen, but it was kind of built up in a way that was just like you didn't know for sure if he was going to die or not. But then he does, and that whole not Penny's boat thing where he writes on his hand, that's probably the single most iconic thing from the show, or one of the most iconic. I mean, there's a lot of iconic things from the show, but that scene where he writes not Penny's boat on his hand, and Desmond just watches him dying and drowning, it was very tragic, and this episode was just very intense overall. That one scene where they do that fake out where you think Saeed and the others got killed, and Ben's on the walkie-talkie, and that editing where he's like 5, 4, 3, it's just incredible stuff. And man, Matthew Fox's acting in this episode was also great. I mean, his acting's always fantastic, but yeah, I just love the episode. It was a great way to end season 3, and it's one of my it is my favorite episode of the show. And yeah, great stuff. Anyways, at number 6, I have Succession, Season 1, Episode 6, Which Side Are You On? Now, I actually did a whole video about this episode, talking about why it was the episode that made Succession great, and it is the episode that kind of hooked me to the show, so I won't be talking about it too long, but basically, I just thought it was intense all throughout. That scene where Kendall's trying to get to the meeting, the vote of no confidence meeting, was super intense, and he gets stuck in traffic. Oh, man. I mean, it was so exciting to watch. It was entertaining. I love this episode, and really important episode for the series, and I just love the show overall. But yeah, I think this is my favorite episode of the show. Anyways, at number 5, I have The Sopranos, Season 3, Episode 11, Pine Barrens. The stereotypical episode everyone says is the best one of this show, and I don't know what to tell you. It is. It simply is just my favorite. Is it the best? Again, I don't know, but it's simply just my favorite. Of course, this is the great episode where Christopher and Polly get stuck in the Pine Barrens out in the cold and the snow, and have no way of getting out, and they end up getting lost, and then they have to go in that van and eat ketchup and relish or whatever packets. It was hilarious. It's one of the funniest episodes of the show. And it did kind of remind me of that one episode. Obviously, this episode came out before this, but that episode in Breaking Bad, season 2, I think it was season 2, episode 9, when Walt and Jesse get stuck out in the desert. Definitely reminds me of this episode. Of course, this came out before that, but you get what I'm trying to say. I love this episode. It is so hilarious. It's very much like a bottle episode. It doesn't really play a whole lot into the overarching plot of the season, but it doesn't matter for me. I still love this episode. It is, kind of a one-off storyline that it doesn't have anything to do with the main plot, but I love it, and I think that's what makes it so brilliant, and it's just so funny. Love it. It's definitely like one of my comfort episodes, and it's great. Anyways, at number 4, I have Daredevil Season 2, Episode 3, New York's Finest. Whenever I think about Daredevil, the Netflix series, I think about this episode. Of course, you have that incredible conversation between Matt and Frank on, was killing right to do. Because obviously Matt's pissed off at Frank for killing all these people, and he's chained to the wall there on top of the roof. And it's just incredible dialogue. I mean, it is so great. That dialogue is amazing. And then you have that, of course, that incredible fight, that one shot with Daredevil kicking ass and fighting off those biker guys, and then he does that thing with the chain where he wraps it around the guy's neck, and it's incredible, dude. I mean, I don't know how they pulled that stuff off, but yeah, this is my favorite episode of the show by far, and it's just one of the episodes that whenever I think about Daredevil, I think about this one, so I love it. Anyways, at number 3, I have The Walking Dead, Season 5, Episode 1, No Sanctuary. Similar to Daredevil Season 2, Episode 3, whenever I think about The Walking Dead, I think about this episode. And the hype going into this episode was surreal. I mean, if you were around the Walking Dead community in 2014, you knew the hype for this episode. And this episode delivered. I mean, off that Season 4 cliffhanger, of course, we have Rick and the group getting out of Terminus in that. It was just amazing. It was an action-packed episode, and very brutal, that opening scene where they were slitting their throats, the other people's throats. That always stuck in my mind. It was so brutal. And then Carol being a badass in this episode with that big explosion. It was great. And we also get the return of Morgan at the very end of the episode, which was so unexpected, and just that was the icing on top of the cake for me. It was just surreal. This episode's great. I love it. Also, Rick and Carl reuniting with Judith. That was so emotional. There's so many great things about this episode, and really well executed premiere, and it is my favorite episode of the show. Anyways, at number 2, I have Better Call Saul Season 6, Episode 7, Plan and Execution. Now, if you watched my Better Call Saul ranking video where I ranked all the episodes, you'll know that I said Bagman was my favorite episode. I disagree now that it's been a few months later. Plan and Execution is my favorite episode of the series. I mean, this is, I guess, the Ozymandias of Better Call Saul, because a lot of people say Ozymandias was the best episode of Breaking Bad. And, but, you know, that moment with Howard and Lalo, and it's just so sad but shocking, and just that final season. But the whole episode's great, where Howard's kind of freaking out because he's got that stuff on his hands, and then his eyes are all dilated, and everyone thinks he's on cocaine. It was just amazing and kind of hilarious, but like very like screwed up, because you are rooting for Howard in a way, but you're also rooting for Jimmy and Kim. But Jimmy and Kim are just like, man, bad choice road. What can I say? But yeah, it was very tragic, that ending with Howard. And I love the episode overall. It's just fantastic. And my favorite episode of Better Call Saul. Anyways, at number 1, my favorite TV show episode is Breaking Bad Season 5, Episode 16, Felina. Yep, it's not Ozymandias. Again, if you saw my Breaking Bad episodes ranked video, you'll know I talked about Felina's my favorite. Ozymandias is a very close second. I know some people are going to be like, Ozymandias isn't on this list. Technically it is, because if it was, I guess, a true best episodes of TV, for me, Ozymandias would be on the list. But like, I didn't want to include multiple episodes of a show just because, I don't know, I felt like that was cheap to do or something. But Felina is my favorite. It wraps up the series perfectly, and it was just amazing to see Walt rescue Jesse and get revenge on Jack and those neo-Nazis, and Jesse strangling Todd was awesome. And of course, Walt just saying goodbye to Skyler, and him watching Walter Jr. from a distance is one of the saddest scenes in the show. I don't know, man. I love this episode. For me, it's just like, it just hits. Like, there's something about it. Like, the first time I watched it, I just felt so changed. That sounds kind of cringe, but I don't know. I mean, I love Ozymandias, but for me, this is my favorite episode, and just the best finale I've ever seen to a show. But there you guys go. Those are my top 10 favorite TV show episodes. I'm sure there'll be a little controversy down in the comments, but let me hear your favorite episodes of TV that you've seen, because I'm definitely curious to see what you guys have to say. Yeah, there's a lot of good TV show episodes out there, but yeah, let me hear your thoughts on all that down in the comments. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and check out my Letterboxd and Twitter down in the description. I'll follow back. See you guys in the next one. Peace.